Shalom, Hebrews and Hebrews. This old field disciple. Let's do some daily bread this morning. I don't know, yesterday I waited all day long for daily bread to upload. It would just wouldn't upload, but I got it first thing this morning. So we got yesterday's daily bread uploaded this morning, and I'll have this one uploaded hopefully here in a little bit. So with that said, let's read Exodus chapter 4, Luke chapter 6 or 7, um, Psalms 52, and Proverbs 18. Let's get with it. Earlier this week, took the family. We went camping. There wasn't no signal, and really, I wanted to get away from it all for a couple of days, and we did, and it was a blessed time. We took some of our youth from the congregation, and we just went and had a great time down on the river here. Uh, and so, with that said, I think it's important that sometimes we do that, and we just shun everything and go and spend time with the Lord and His creation. Let's read Shemot 4:1. And Moshe answered and said, if they do not believe me, nor listen to my voice, and say, Yahweh has not appeared to you, and Yahweh said to him, What is it that that is in your hand? And he said, A rod. And he said, Throw it to the ground. And so he threw it on the ground, and it became a serpent, and Moshe fled from it. You imagine you throw a stick on the ground and it turned into a snake? I'm moving too. And Yahweh said to Moshe, Reach out with your hand and seize it by the tail. So he reached out his hand and took hold of it, and it became a rod in his hand. So that they believed that Yahweh Elohim of their fathers, the Elohim of Abraham, Isaac, and the Elohim of Jacob, has appeared to you. And Yahweh said to him again, Now put your hand in your bosom. And he put his hand in his bosom. And he took it out, and see, his hand was leprous, like snow. And he said, Put your hand in your bosom again. So he put his hand in his bosom again and drew it out of his bosom. And see, it was restored like his other flesh. And it shall be, if they do not believe you, nor listen to the voice of the first sign, they shall believe the voice of the latter sign. And it shall be, if they do not believe even these two signs, or listen to your voice, that you shall take water from the river and pour it on dry land, and the water which you take from the river shall become blood on dry land. And Moshe said to Yahweh, O Yahweh, I am not a man of words, neither before nor since you have spoken to your servant, for I am of slow speech and of slow tongue. That's how I feel a lot of times, especially early on when I first started teaching and then began bringing the word. Uh, I just, I was really, I hated it. I'd freeze up, not really freeze up, just I'd get cold sweats, mouth would get dry, I'd get really, really nervous. And it just wasn't my thing to stand in front of people to speak. But as time has went on, the Lord has raised me up from that, and we'll see Him do that along with Moses too. And don't hear me wrong. I'm no way in any way, shape, form, or fashion comparing myself to Moses, but in this aspect, yes, I can. Verse 11, and Yahweh said to him, Who has made man's mouth? Or who makes dumb and deaf, or seeing or blind? Is it not I, Yahweh? And now go, and I shall be with your mouth and teach you what to say. But he said, O Yahweh, please send by the hand of him whom you would send. And the displeasure of Yahweh burned against Moshe. And he said, Is not Aaron the Levite your brother? I know that he speaks well, and see, he is also coming to meet you. And when he sees you, he shall be glad in his heart. And you shall speak to him, and put the words in his mouth, and I am with your mouth, and with his mouth, and I shall teach you what to do. And he shall speak for you to the people. And it shall be that he shall be a mouth for you, and you shall be an Elohim for him. That's a little e, Lord. Um, you'll be his Lord, but little lowercase l. And take this rod in your hand, with which you shall do the signs. Then Moshe went and returned to Yethro, his father-in-law, and said to him, Please let me go and return to my brothers, who are in Mitzrayim, to see whether they are still alive. And Yethro said to Moshe, Go in peace. Shalom. That's what shalom means. Go in peace. Blessings. Or welcome. Has several connotations. And Yahweh said to Moshe in Midian, Go, return to Mitzrayim, for all the men are dead who sought your life. So Moshe took his wife and his sons, set them on a donkey, and returned to the land of Mitzrayim. And Moshe took the rod of Elohim in his hand. And Yahweh said to Moshe, As you go back to Mitzrayim, see that you do all those wonders before Pharaoh, which I have put in your hand. But I am going to strengthen his heart, so that he does not let the people go. And you shall say to Pharaoh, Thus saith Yahweh, Yisrael is my son, my firstborn. So I say to you, Let my son go to serve me. But if you refuse to let him go, see, I'm killing your son, your firstborn. It came to be on the way in the lodging place that Yahweh met him and sought to kill him. And Zipporah took a sharp stone and cut off the foreskin of her son and threw it at his feet and said, You are indeed a bridegroom of blood to me. So he let him go. Then he said, You are a bridegroom of blood because of the circumcision. And Yahweh said to Aaron, Go, meet Moshe in the wilderness. And he went and met him on the mountain of Elohim and kissed him. And Moshe then told Aaron all the words of Yahweh who had sent him, and all the signs which he had commanded him. And Moshe went with Aaron, and gathered together all the elders of the children of Israel. And Aaron spoke all the words which Yahweh had spoken to Moshe. Then he did the signs before the eyes of the people, and the people believed. And they heard that Yahweh had visited the children of Israel, and that he had looked on their affliction, and they bowed their heads and did obeisance. I kind of see that today is what we need to be doing. We need to begin getting together a couple of men in our circle and getting prepared to become more community minded, more tribal minded. This lone wolf stuff is not going to cut it. What we have coming at us, I see the world only getting progressively worse and worse and worse, and more rapid um, success in that as we go forth and go forward. Um, the wickedness, it's not even being hidden from our eyes now. It's just blatant, um, right before us. Let's turn to Proverbs 18. Mishle 18. The separatist seeks his own desire, and he breaks out against all sound wisdom. That's what I just said. We've got to become community minded so we do not break out against sound wisdom. Verse 2, a fool does not delight in understanding, but in uncovering his own heart. When a wrong one comes, scorn comes too, and with shame comes reproach. The words of a man's mouth are deep waters. The fountain of wisdom is a flowing stream. It is not good to show partiality to the wrong, or to turn aside the righteous and right ruling. A fool's lips enter into strife, and his mouth calls for blows. A fool's mouth is in his ruin, and his lips are the snare of his life. The words of a slanderer are like a delicacy, and they go down in the inner parts of the heart. Also he who is slack in his work is a brother of a master destroyer. The name of Yahweh is a strong tower. The righteous run to it and are safe, and the rich man's wealth is his strong city. And like a high wall in his own imagination, before destruction, the heart of a man is haughty, and before esteem is humility. He who answers a matter before he hears it, it is folly and shame to him. and the spirit of man sustains him in sickness. But who does bear a broken spirit? And the heart of the understanding one gets knowledge, and the ear of the wise seeks knowledge. A man's gift makes room for him and brings him before great men. The first to state his own case seems right, till another comes and examines him. The lot settles disputes and separates between the mighty. A brother transgressed against is a strong city, and contentions are like the bars of a citadel. A man's stomach is satisfied from the fruit of his mouth. He is satisfied with the increase of his lips. Death and life are in the power of the tongue, and those loving it eat its fruit. He who has found a wife has found a good, and receives favor from Yahweh. The poor speaks beseechingly, but the rich answers fiercely. A man of many friends might come to ruin, but there is a loving one who sticks closer than a brother. Again, community minded. Lifestyle changes are about to take place all across the land. Whether you like it or not, whether you accept it or not, change is coming. Helium 52. Why do you boast in evil, O mighty man? The loving commitment of El is all day long. Your tongue devises destruction, like a sharp razor working deceit. Life and death are in the power of the tongue. I just read that in Proverbs. Our tongue devises destruction. You loved evil more than good, and lying more than speaking righteousness. Selah. You love all devouring words, a tongue of deceit. Let El also break you down forever, and take you and pluck you out of your tent, and he shall uproot you from the land of the living. Selah. Let the righteous see and fear, and laugh at him, saying, See, the man who did not make Elohim his strength, but trusted in his many riches, being strong in his destruction. But I am like a green olive tree in the house of Elohim. I have entrusted in the loving commitment of Elohim forever and ever. I thank you forever because you have done it, and in your presence of your loving committed ones, I wait on your name, for it is good. In the name of the Lord. Lucas. Luke 6. wait, not 6. Luke 7. Now, for some whatever reason, the video was cut off yesterday. I don't remember where exactly it cut off. But I'm going to back up and read. You know what? Let's just read 6 and 7 together again today. Oh, where are we at? It's going to take about 15 minutes to do so. Let's get past the woes. I'm going to start in verse 36 in chapter 6. 6:36. Therefore be compassionate as your Father is also compassionate. And do not judge, and you shall not be judged at all. Condemn not, and you shall not be condemned at all. Forgive, and you shall be forgiven. All right, that goes back to Matthew 7, 7:1, where people get that all twisted. Luke uses the word condemn here. I'm not sure why in Matthew that word is not translated to condemn and judge not lest you be judged. Anyway, give and it shall be given to you, and a good measure pressed down, shaken together, and running over shall be put into your lap. For with the same measure with which you measure, it shall be measured back to you. And he spoke a parable to them. Is a blind able to lead a blind? And shall they both fall in a ditch? A taught one is not above his teacher, but everyone perfected shall be like his teacher. And why do you see the splinter in your brother's eye, but not aware of the plank in your own? Or how are you able to say to your brother, Brother, let me take out that splinter out of your eye, not seeing the plank in your own? Hypocrite! First take the plank out of your own eye, and then you shall see clearly to take out the splinter that's in your brother's. Let us get our own spiritual house in order. Let us get our own problems um, working on. That doesn't mean that we have to become righteous completely and totally following God before we can start ministering to others. Because there's some things that I still have issue in my life that I'm working on, but I'm still able to minister to others and say, hey, that's sin, that's not right. What it means is don't just walk around looking for others' flaws. Make sure that you're constantly evaluating your own flaws. Because I'll assure you, we are all works in progress. That saying, um, I may not be who I want to be, but thank God I'm not who I used to be. Verse 43, for a good tree does not yield rotten fruit, nor does a rotten tree yield good fruit. For each tree is known by its own fruit, and for they do not gather figs from thorns, nor grapes from a bramble bush. A good man brings forth what is good out of the good treasure of his heart, and a wicked man brings forth what is wicked out of the wicked treasure of his heart. For out of the overflow of the heart his mouth speaks. Again, there's that tongue. Why do you call me Master, Master, and do not what I say? Everyone who is coming to me and is hearing my words and is doing them, I shall show you whom he is like. He is like a man building a house, who dug deep and laid a foundation on the rock. And when the flood came, the stream burst against the house, but was unable to shake it, for it was founded on the rock. But the one hearing and not doing is like a man who built his house on the earth without a foundation, against which the stream burst, and immediately it fell, and the ruin of that house was great. Chapter 7. And when he had completed all his words in the hearing of the people, he went to Capernaum. And a certain captain's servant, who was valuable to him, was sick and about to die. And hearing about Yeshua, he sent elders to Yehudim. He sent elders of the Yehudim to him, asking him to come and heal his servant. And when they came to Yeshua, they begged him earnestly, saying, He is worthy for you to grant this to him, for he loves our nation and has built the congregation for us. So Yeshua went with them. However, he was not far from the house when the captain sent friends to him, saying to him, Master, do not trouble yourself, for I am not worthy that you should come under my roof. His friends said he was worthy. His friends tells Jesus, man, this dude, he really needs help. Him hearing this humbles himself and says, whoa, hold up. I am not worthy. I'm no one. Kind of like we heard Moses. Who am I that you would do anything for me, Lord? We've got to seek this humility, y'all. For this reason, I did not even think myself worthy to come to you. But say a word, and my servant shall be healed. The enemy will use that right there and spin that lie to us when we have someone that we know that's in darkness and walking in the world. That's their feeling, and you'll hear them say, I'm not worthy. I've done too much wickedness. I can't have this God you talk about. Verse 8, for I too am a man appointed under authority, having soldiers under me. And I say to one, go, and he goes, and to another, come, and he comes. And to my servant, do this, and he does it. And when Shua heard this, he marveled at him, and turned around, and said to the crowd following him, I say to you, not even in Israel have I found such great belief. And those who were sent, returning to the house, found the servant who had been sick and in good health. Came to be the next day that he went into a city called Naim, maybe. And many of his taught ones went with him in a large crowd. Now we notice and see over and over again, people are following Jesus, following Yeshua, coming to Yeshua, not for who he is, but for what he can do for them. This man here, in his humility, recognized who Jesus was, saw him for who he was, not for what he was about to do to him and the servant, but who he was. If we can get there in that place, y'all. And see, as he came near the gate of a city, a dead man was being carried out, the only son of his mother, and she was a widow, and a large crowd from the city was with her. And when the master saw her, he had compassion on her and said to her, "Do not weep." And coming near, he touched the bier, the bier, and those bearing it stood still. And he said, "Young man, I say to you, arise." And he who was dead sat up and began to speak. And he gave him to his mother. Here we go, verse 16. And fear seized all, and they praised Elohim, saying, "A great prophet has been raised up among us, and Elohim has visited his people." A great fear seized them all. You're carrying your dead son to his grave, and he sits up and says, "Hey, what's up, y'all? Why y'all all crying?" That would scare the living hell out of all of us today. Bet that. And this news about him went out in all Yehuda and all the neighborhood. One of his taught ones of Yohanan reported to him all this. And Yohanan, calling two of his taught ones near, sent to Yeshua, saying, "Are you the coming one, or should we look for another?" And coming to him, see, I find that one interesting because that's John the Baptist. He baptized him. He baptized Jesus, and he said, "Behold, the Lamb who take away the sin of the world." But yet, are you the coming one, or should we look for another? Are you really him? Might be a little off base here, but how many times do maybe us or we know someone who comes into the faith and they start following Jesus and they become strong in the Lord, and then they begin to doubt and they begin to fall off, and you see them basically walk in apostasy. I looked at my own life, never hearing Jesus until I was 27 years old, hearing Jesus, knowing who the Messiah was. I become strong in the faith. I was on fire. And then I fell off and for 10 years walked in apostasy. Just let that be what it is. Do your own research. Go see what that actually means. Maybe it means that. Maybe I'm off base there. Verse 20, and coming to him, the man said, "Yohanan the Immerser has sent us to you, saying, Are you the coming one, or should we look for another?" And in the same hour he healed many of diseases, afflictions, and wicked spirits, and he gave sight to many blind ones. And Yeshua answering said to them, "Go report to John what you have seen and heard. Blind receive the sight, and lame do walk, lepers cleansed, the deaf hear, dead are raised, and the good news is being brought to the poor. The poor, remember, those who are under bondage of Israel, Hebrews. And blessed is he who shall stumble in me. Blessed is he who shall not stumble in me." And when the messengers of Johanan had left, he began to speak to the crowds concerning Johanan. "What did you go out into the wilderness to see? A reed shaken by the wind? But what did you go out to see? A man dressed in soft garments? Look, those who are splendidly dressed and living in luxury are in the houses of the sovereigns. But what did you go out to see? A prophet? Yes, I say to you, and more than a prophet. This is he concerning whom it has been written, See, I send my messenger before your face, who shall prepare your way before you. For I say to you, among those born of the women, there is not a greater prophet than Johanan the Immerser. But he who is least in the reign of Elohim is greater than he. And all the people, even the tax collectors, when they heard, declared Elohim righteous, having been immersed with the immersion of Johanan. But the Pharisees and those learned in the Torah rejected the counsel of Elohim for themselves, not having been immersed by him. And the master said, to what then shall I compare the men of this generation? And what are they like? They are like children sitting in the marketplace and calling to one another, saying, we played the flute for you, and you did not dance, and we lamented for you, and you did not weep. For Johanan the Immerser came neither eating bread nor drinking wine, and you say, he is a demon. The Son of Man has come, eating and drinking, and you say, look, a man of glutton, a wine drinker, a friend of tax collectors and sinners. Put the brakes on, hold up. What? The Son of Man, Jesus, came eating and drinking wine? Oh, the Baptists got to find a loophole for that one, right? No way. All alcohol is bad. Why do you think Jesus, when he's sitting at the last Passover with his disciples, says, I will not drink again of the fruit of the vine until I drink it renewed with you? Because they're used to Jesus sitting down for a meal and drinking a glass of wine with them. See how twisted we get the scriptures? All because we want to throw our little twist in it, just like the Pharisees wanted to throw their little twist into it. You know, we can't add laws and rules to God's laws and rules. It'll cause us to stumble in our own. Same thing Eve did with the tree. God says don't eat it. Eve says don't eat it, don't touch it, don't look at it, nothing. Well, she'd set up boundaries for herself that once she crossed the first boundary and nothing happened, then she was able to cross the boundary that God set, and that's what made her fall. We've got to be careful we don't do these things. Verse 35, and wisdom is declared right by all her children. And one of the Pharisees asked him to eat with him. And he went into the Pharisee's house, sat down to eat. And see, a woman in the city who was a sinner, when she knew that Yeshua sat at the table of the Pharisee's house, brought an alabaster flask of perfume. And standing behind at his feet, weeping, she began to wet his feet with her tears, and wiping them with the hair of her head, and was kissing his feet and anointing them with the perfume. And when the Pharisee who had invited him saw this, he spoke to himself, saying, this one, if he were a prophet, would know who and what kind of woman this is who is touching him, for she is a sinner. How dare Jesus sit with the likes of her? She's a hooker and a whore. And yet Jesus lets her touch him? And Yeshua answered, said to him, Shimeon, I have somewhat to say to you. He said, teacher, say it. A certain creditor had two debtors. The one owed 500 denarii and the other 50. And when they were unable to repay, he forgave them both. Which of them shall love him more? And Shimon answering said, I suppose the one whom he forgave more. And Jesus said to him, you have rightly judged. Uh-oh. There's a judge not lest you be judged, or should we? We're confused. No, we're not. Got to pay attention. And turning to the woman, he said to Shimeon, do you see this woman? I came into her house. You gave me no water for my feet. She has wetted my feet with her tears and wiped them with the hair of her head. You gave me no kiss, but she has not ceased to kiss my feet since the time I came in. You did not anoint my head with oil, but she anointed my feet with perfume. Therefore I say to you, her many sins have been forgiven, because she loved much. But to whom little is forgiven, he loves little. And he said to her, your sins have been forgiven. And those who were sitting at the table with him began to say among themselves, "Who is this who even forgives sins?" And he said to the woman, "Your belief has saved you. Go in peace." So much to be said there. I'm going to let that be the word. Go do your own research. Check these things out. Y'all be blessed. Be encouraged and always be frustrated. This is Oilfield Disciple, and we'll break bread together on the next one.